Yo. Alrighty. What's happening, guys? Thank you for your patience. There's a few of you here waiting. I really appreciate you popping in. I'm only mildly tech savvy, so I had to reset my camera, hit a couple of settings. But let's go ahead and dive in. I got at least Horace here. Says three others right now, so very cool. So what's happening? Here's what's going on in the strongman world. This weekend down in Florida, I am hosting Hope for the Holidays. It's a charity hurricane relief fundraiser event where state and national records are going to be set. So we have some people going for an axle press, log press, deadlift, 18-inch deadlift, and a farmer's hold. Now, Horace is going to be there. Some good regular Florida faces will be around. I've got a couple clients competing. If it's not too chaotic, I may jump in and do a lift or two myself. But that's that. So what we're going to get into tonight, and if you're checking back around on the replay, is just going to kind of roll through some things and ideas about running strongman shows. So one video I would really recommend to go watch on my channel is called Is Strongman Oversaturated? So something that a lot of people over the last year have talked about is they're saying that strongman is oversaturated. And what they mean by that is they're saying there are too many shows in Florida. And I don't think that that's really the case whatsoever. If people are complaining about that, they're actually complaining about there are too many bad shows in Florida. And bad is subjective, right? Because some people think that a bad strongman show is just a style that they don't prefer. So let's look at, some things that are coming up on the horizon. You have a show such as Florida's Strongest Man, which has been running probably 10 years, maybe more, maybe 11, 12. I'm not really sure. And I think they have less than 15 people signed up. Now, the thing that a lot of people have to realize, like promoters and people that want to put on shows, is if you think that your idea is like really super cool, it really doesn't matter if the market and the audience is not going to respond. So a lot of people in the strongman world think that all shows need to be really, really heavy, or are immediately put off if a show is not extremely difficult, in their opinion. But, the biggest show that I ever did, which was 100 people, all had relatively light weights, and it was full of novices and first timers. So kind of have a lot of different points on here, but to kind of corral and get back in here, there does not need to be one certain style of strongman competition. That's why strongman is so good, is that you can have shows that are really, really heavy, and you can have shows that are like medium weights. You can have shows that are a blend, some heavy events, some moving events. But what's really most important is that whatever the show style is, like if you're a promoter and you're putting this together, you need to make sure a few things are happening. I mean, one, the logistics of this, it has to run smoothly, it has to be accessible, and it has to be welcoming, in my opinion, to multiple different levels of athletes. Shows are very expensive to run. It costs, money to rent a venue. You have to sometimes rent equipment. At the very least, you're probably going to have to get a truck to move equipment, even if you own it, from point A to point B. You're going to be making t-shirts. You're going to be buying trophies. You're probably going to be spending money on ads of some sort, like marketing materials, on top of just like all the physical and mental labor that's going into this. So what promoters need to make sure that they're doing is create an environment that is conducive to having a lot of people in, and that can just be having a good amount of weight classes where you can have beginning level people and more advanced all compete under the same banner, just scaled appropriately, but also not going too deep so that you have, like 50 to 60 different classes. Because if you were to go down the ranks of United States Strongman, let's just do a soft count off the top of my head. Just for women, you could have 2 novice divisions, then you could have 2 lightweights, 2 middleweights, 2 light heavyweights, 2 heavyweights, a super heavyweight, 2 masters divisions in the 40 plus, 2 masters divisions in the 50 plus, a masters 60 plus, you can add 3 types of adapting. So if I'm just counting there, just for women alone, it's 18 divisions. Some people stretch this out to where if you're allowing all of those, you're opening it up to 36 different divisions. Now, when I run shows, what I like to do is find that blend where we have a lot of different classes, but not so many so that the organization is all over the place. Because if you have 36 different classes, you're going to have so many weight changes. You have to consider that when you're going in and out of like, how long is this event going to run? Like, what's it really going to take in order for this to be successful? I have a lightweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight open for both classes. Then I will do a novice and I will do a masters. I will also probably do a teen from here forward. So now we're getting this down to 7 categories per gender. So that we'll have 14 total. Then when we're splitting this up over all the different classes, what I like to do then is actually group some of the divisions into groups. So we're talking novice, lightweight, and middleweight. Sometimes, like for the women, they're going to run at similar weights. So we're only going to have 4 to 5 weight changes sometimes per division. So think about that. Like if we have 60 or 70 or 80 people, even something like really, really large, if we only have to change the weight of something 3 to 4 times, that's going to save a lot of time versus if you have 15 divisions, 20 divisions, and that many weight changes. There's little things like that you just have to plan for that add up over the course of the day. Because the biggest feedback that I hear all the time is that people want shows to run in a timely manner. And a lot of times people, it's something that people don't understand or recognize when a show runs really smooth, but it like stings a little bit whenever shows go poorly. There were a handful of shows this year that went late into the night because these things were unaccounted for. The organization was not planned ahead. You have to really think about things like if you're doing a rising bar or you're doing a max weight event, if you're doing something like a static monsters, which is traditionally a log and a deadlift, and maybe usually a third event, like you can get away with having multiple flights where you do powerlifting style and you go lightweight up to heavyweight, like with attempts, you're going like the lightest opener to the heaviest opener and then reset through the flight, second attempt lightest up to second attempt heaviest, reset. Like you can do that if you have 2 to 3 lifts only and you have a lot of help and staff around. But if you're having something like a 5 lift event with all going for maxes, you're probably going to need to do a rising bar style setup. At Beast of the Bay this last year, we had, I think our total count was 65 on Saturday, and we did a rising bar, which, allowed us to be very, very quick on weight changes. Even though we probably had 20 to 30 weight changes, it was very smooth and systematic and orderly so that we could run through an entire lineup of, it was like 22 women and I think about like 48 men or something like that, or like 43 men, something like that. So, there's just a lot of different things to consider when you are planning these shows. The very first thing I think when you're thinking about what to do with these shows, in my opinion, is consider blending events to be a mix of a challenge, like good logistically, like easy, manageable to pull off, and order. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Boy, I really want to spoil some things for you guys. If you're here listening, tomorrow at noon, I'm dropping all the news and info for World's Strongest Man at T5. You can find all that on my Instagram. I'll definitely be making a video for that too. But anyways, let's get back to it. So let's just talk Beast of the Bay. So logistically, we had the fire truck pull, and sometimes I have to plan that one event. Like I usually get away with one event can kind of take a while if the other 4 events are run really, really quickly. So the fire truck pull, because it was kind of the main event, we had to do that first because that was the time that Hillsborough County allowed us to have that device. They could only let us use it until 11 a.m. on both days. So we had to do it first but also since it was outside, it made the most sense to try and do it as early in the day as possible. Otherwise, I'm looking to try and craft things that make sense to me to even out, kind of the usages in the systems. So we're not going to go like low back, low back, low back, like 3 events in a row. So let's kind of consider Beast of the Bay and why I laid those events out in the order that I did. So fire truck pull, that was really just down to equipment availability. It had to be done first, and it had to be done early because that's when Hillsborough County let us have it, and it was outside, so it was going to get hot. But number 2, max axle clean and press. So if we have something that's like a maximal lift, that's probably best. You're giving people the best opportunity to do the most weight by having that earlier in the competition. This is why things like the max deadlift is always one of the very first events at the Arnold Classic, is because people are fresh going in, so they have the best chance at lifting the highest amount of weight. Then after that, we followed that up with, what did we do after? So let me think. We had, what was after that? I'm drawing a blank now. Oh, yeah, deadlift for reps. Great, right. So, max axle press, even though that wasn't like a super taxing thing, we took that into the deadlift for reps. So that's going to be pretty, heavy taxing on the low back, as well as like kind of put a dent in somebody's strength endurance. So we're not doing that before the axle press, because we're allowing, again, axle press, you have like as much freshness as possible to lift heavy. And then I'm thinking once they're activated and have like all that like power potential, excited from doing a max lift, then you're going to kind of drop it down to do a high rep out type push. So this is no different than when you're in training in the gym of like working up to a top single or top double, and then backing down to do your drop sets at like lighter, higher reps. So I try to like make those things conducive to athletes' success. And then we funnel that into a Denny carry, which works really well, corresponds pretty well with all the things that you need for the deadlift. So like your grip should be pretty activated, your lats, your traps, your posterior chain are like all alert, so your system is like awake and alive. But this is like a kind of a little more of like a full body strain while you're holding those weird handle things out to the side that follows nicely after the deadlift. It's not too low back intensive. And I'm trying to, on purpose, give the low back a break, because most events in Strongman are backside heavy. And then we finished with the sandbag to shoulders. So it's kind of inevitable to have a lot of low back over and over and over again in Strongman. It's just kind of the way that everything works movement-wise. But if you are able to have an event in there, again, like the Denny's, that's not really super low back intensive while you're going through it, you can kind of give that area a little bit of a rest. So if you have to do something like a heavy sandbag to shoulder and carry, which is what that event was, again, this is all about letting athletes kind of have a good flow of events to be conducive to success. So, a lot of things then go into that, considering like what type of event surface are you doing this show on? So one thing that I had to actually take care of and fix was the smooth cement floor in the expo hall. We ended up having a lot of chips because of the plates hitting the Denny's over and over again. So like I did not consider that. I should have, not just used bumpers, because it was the pins, the actual pins on the bottom of the Denny rings were causing some of those chips. So I'd have to do something a little different next year. But in years past, I've had these events on a clay pitch at the Manatee County Fairgrounds. So we could drop Atlas stones like pretty much no harm, no foul, because they're dropping into the sand. So it's not going to like dent or cause cracks in the surface. It'll sink right into that clay pitch and also not ruin the Atlas stones. So we could get away with just like a slim rubber mat or things like that. Now, going on to that, you can't quite do the same with grass, because grass will cause divots, in the surface. If we were dropping heavy objects like a log or stones in clay, we actually could just shovel it back and smooth it out nice and even. It was just that simple, and it would still be a fair, even, level playing surface for everybody else. But when I've seen things like a carry medley that's done on grass, if somebody drops something heavy, it causes a big hole and a big divot that you cannot fix on the spot. So that leaves a pretty big injury risk to the following competitors and like every person after that, because it's very likely if it's a heavy show or not, you just have people that are going to drop these weights all the time. So that's how it goes. So we're talking about, again, how do we flow the events together in order to kind of build a smooth flow physically for athletes? How do we work around our equipment and like environment? So like what type of surface are we on? And then we got to consider, right, of course, like indoors or outdoors, because outdoors can be very, very draining if it's under the Florida sun. If you have like a shade or cover, great, that certainly mitigates things, but you don't want to do anything like very famously, I shouldn't say very famously, but at a comp a couple of years ago, there was a log press first event, but the event started later in the afternoon and the logs were not covered up. They'd actually been cooking out under the sun for several hours. And some ladies got some burn right on their chest because that log had been cooking under the sun all day long. They rolled it up, and a literal singe burn on them. So, you just have to think about these things. Like stones will heat up in the sun, sandbags will heat up in the sun, but not in the same way that like a hot steel log would. So when people go to grab that, it could literally cause problems. I've seen at CrossFit competitions where bumper plates, they were using those for people to put their hands on for handstand push-ups, and that insides the centers were steel. So people went to do that and same thing, had that burn on there. So again, thinking about how we're laying this out. So we've got our events, we're thinking about our location, and then one thing you have to consider is like with space and those events is how many lanes at a time can you run? Because a lot of times people have like an awesome idea for the coolest event of all time, and it turns into the slowest event ever. I don't want to talk about this negatively because overall it's a big positive, but like I think the wrecking ball hold at the official Strongman games, although it was really cool, man, that thing ran almost 2 hours slow. Made for a lot of cool social media moments, and interestingly enough, that gets the most views out of almost anything else on social media. But man, it was boring to watch. It's kind of the same thing over and over and over again, and a snoozer. That being said, they had 4 people at once. That would have really turned around really quick if they had 5 people going at once or 6 people going at once. They could have gotten through this almost 50% faster by just adding one more person to it. One time in 2020, I did a Hercules hold with cars that were on down ramps. It was a 100-person show, and one person at a time was going on that event. And while it sounded awesome, I think it was a really great idea. I don't think that it was tested very well. And that single event alone, one event out of that Strongman show, took 4, maybe 4.5 hours. And it was only a 4-event show, thank God. But I actually at one point took a nap in the middle of that show. I'm not sure if it was before or after my turn, but I did fine on that event. It was like probably a 75, 80, 90-second time, but wow, that one took forever. So you have to think about like how many lanes can I run of this? What's the timing of the complete show going to look like? Back to what I was saying. I try to have one event, or I try to have all events run pretty quickly, but I think I can get away with having an overall very smooth, well-done show for logistics and just overall enjoyment of people if 4 out of the 5 are run quickly. So let's refer back to Beast of the Bay so I can give that example again. Fire truck pull was one at a time. That took about an hour and a half, and we had a 30-minute delay because some lady passed out due to heat exhaustion. Not any of the athletes, but every other one of the events were 2 lanes, 2 lanes, 2 lanes, and the last one we did 3 lanes. So if one event runs slow, but the other 4 run pretty quick, like that just allows for a good day overall for the athletes. When we're working on these things too is, we want to try and set up as quick as possible the transitions from events, 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Some people say like, oh, we're going to have a 30-minute intermission. And that's just a terrible idea because one, I think it it displays laziness from people. It's my opinion as a promoter, if I'm putting on this show, that I'm going to do every single thing that I can in my power to make this the best experience I can for these athletes. And that means I don't stop until this show. I don't, I was going to say I don't stop until the show's done, but I don't really stop until every piece of equipment is back in place where it came from. So I don't even stop when the show is over. I stop when that equipment is back home where it belongs. So I had to take all my equipment back home to Bradenton, put it back in the gym, this and that, and return the truck Sunday night after the weekend. But, I'm not saying this to be like, oh, look at me. I'm saying that, we have to do all these stuff to make the show flow really well. So cutting down on all those little times in between events is absolutely critical. Sometimes you can pre-stage things so that you can have event 1 set up here too. As soon as it's done, we're just going to go right into event 2. We were able to do that this year with the fire truck pole and the axle. So the fire truck pole is outside at its own location, and the axles were pre-staged inside. So once everybody was done, you could just flow right in and begin your axle warm-ups, and we got right into the axle presses. So again, logistics, how many lanes can we run of this? You need to make sure that you're able to run things quick and smooth. Because if you're running slowly, athletes are going to have to cool down, warm back up, cool down, warm back up, cool down, warm back up, which is just no fun and actually leads to a higher risk of injury for athletes versus if you can kind of keep them going in a flow. So like I said, in my perfect world, if I'm able to have a 5-event show where logistically the order of these events, in my opinion, create a smooth physical flow for athletes, and we could keep it running quick enough to where they're staying warm the entire day, they should not only have fun and feel good, but they should stay fresh and actually peak and get better towards the tail end of the show because of the way that the events are structured and laid out. That being said, I do think that the last event of a show should always be something that's like a little bit of a, punch and kind of a kick in the teeth just to challenge athletes and give a, reward and give some props to people who are willing to put it all out on the line. The sandbag medley that I did at Beast of the Bay, I made it suck. It was that series of ascending sandbags to shoulders with a carry in between. And everybody had, some pretty good times, but that sort of came down in a lot of places to who wanted it more. If you have 90 seconds to just push it as hard as you absolutely can, everybody was capable of handling that weight, but it really just came down to hustling and pushing it as hard as possible. It was not a cruel and unusual punishment. 90 seconds. It would be cruel and unusual if I made you go down to, I started at 2 minutes originally and I dropped it to 90 seconds. I think that was a great event personally. Like I said, I think it's worthy to have something like that at the end of a show that's really tough and just forces you to leave it all out on the line. So yeah, moving on. Other things to consider is, setting the tone. I think this is very, very important because there's, we're all hobbyists. Shouldn't say all of us, but chances are if you're watching this and if you're not, 99% of us are pure hobbyists in this strongman world. We're not pros and this and that. I think it's important to make sure that the environment is, welcoming and fun for everybody. And this kind of comes down to sometimes branding, sometimes the persona and attitudes of people's running it. But listen, we're all here to have fun. We don't want to tear our shit up and go back to work or live our family lives with a huge injury or just feelings of dissatisfaction from the way that a show was run. It's these are things like lifting weights and getting stronger and competing in strongman. Hopefully we do them because we like them and we really enjoy these pursuits and we use them to better ourselves, not because we have this gigantic ego and we think we're the biggest, baddest motherfucker around. Now, sometimes a lot of these things happen in jest, but, I think you can tell it's kind of obvious who actually loves the smell of their own shit and presents their shows in that way because they want the clout. What I think is more important, not to keep on that point, is let it out from the beginning, that we're going to have a good time, especially at things like rules meetings. when we're there, you want to like really be clear in your language and the way that you're talking to people that like, hey guys, like be nice to your fellow competitors. If somebody needs help, help them out, cheer them on. We're all in this together. It's very important that I think show promoters act and talk that way and not say like, only sign up if you're a badass sort of stuff puts people off, or, talking about how basically how like edgy and hardcore everything is. Like, if you want to go that route and like that is your brand and that's what you want your things to be, like that is fine. But the reason that I am talking about this is like I really would like people to consider that that's not attracting the overwhelming percentage of people that participate in strongman. So you can run these things and they can be very, very well. Like I would like to give a big shout out to Mike De La Pava in Miami because like his brand is so strong and so good. It is Miami's baddest every year. He's done it 7 or 8 years now. He always runs a phenomenal show. And like his brand and persona is hardcore. Like everything ends, everything dies. Like battle axe. Like that's his fucking shtick. And he's able to run with that because 1, it's authentic. 2, he knows exactly who he's marketing to, his people mostly. 3, he's earned the right to like be like this because he's been in this game for so long. A lot of these people kind of come out from nowhere, in their first couple of months or years, like first time doing something like that, talking about how like fucking badass they're going to be. And it's like the most inauthentic thing. And it reeks of it from miles and miles away because like, okay, I mean, if you want to talk like that, you sort of just have to prove that you can back it up. I'm not really just like saying explicitly, don't do that. I just like want you to consider that, your reputation and, your image is very important. Like if you're somebody that just, loudmouths all the time, but, you've never been seen volunteering at a show or working at a show or, being a good supportive person at your competitions, a lot of people are going to have a lot of skepticism about whether or not you're actually going to be able to pull this off, and in many cases, those people do not. Now, not everybody does, but it's just very obvious. I mean, like look around and see, you can probably see it in your own social circles and your own strongman communities, these people that are screaming from the rooftops, they're posting on social media every single day about how their shit is the best, but look at the results, right? Now, not trying to make this all negative, because the reality is, if somebody is going to be like Mr. Edgy and Mr. Hardcore, but they learn from their mistakes, they improve as an athlete or as a promoter or just as a person, and then actually make things better for the community and not just for their own self-flagellation. Like I support that all the way. There are people in strongman that I do not want to be friends with whatsoever, that I absolutely respect the way that they do things because I think they put in the time and the effort to truly make things a better environment for other people, even if I disagree with the way it's done. Not naming names, but like I really feel that way, And the thing is too is like I have a lot of athletes across the state that I coach with online, and there could be a show 4 hours away from me that's 20 minutes down the street from this other guy, and it's being hosted by somebody that I don't like that much. But I still hope that they're going to put on a really good show because I want my athletes to have local opportunities that will be great competition experience and something to train for. It just all comes down to actually running a good show that's good for the athletes and not, for clout. There's really a lot to be said there, but that's that. A lot to be said. Cool. So I think that's kind of a good, went on a big stream and train of consciousness there. But I am open to any comments, questions, concerns. I usually get a few at the end of this, so I'd be happy to field any comments about like, promoting shows or maybe some things you liked or disliked about shows that you've been in this year, years in the past. I have 2 shows coming up. First one's been announced publicly. World Old School Strongman will be held in Ocala, Florida at Iron Legion Strength and Combat. We'll be co-running with Ted Drever and his team. I'm super excited about it. That's going to be a max competition. So there'll be a max Zercher, max log lift, and a max deadlift. Really pumped about that. So up live on Iron Podium. And tomorrow at noon on my Instagram. Tomorrow at noon, Danny Sutterfield. Tomorrow at noon, my brother, it's happening. You'll get all that tomorrow at noon. All the World's Strongest Manatee info will be up and out tomorrow at noon. So gonna be sick. I despite me saying, don't hype things up as the biggest and the baddest. I'm not going to, but I do think this will be the biggest World's Strongest Manatee yet. This will be the 5th one. And believe it or not, I actually was not going to do it this year, and then I got invited to be a part of something pretty spectacular that I could not say no to. So sort of meant to be, and I'm really actually genuinely happy about it because World's Strongest Manatee, my brand, that's my baby. That's my big main one, man. I love it so much. Like, I think I've loved the logo every single year, man. It's so good. It's the best one yet, and I think this one will be the best competition that I've ever ran. I'm so excited. I've never been more thrilled to put on a show. So I'm just really pumped. That's all coming out tomorrow at noon, my brother. I can tell you this: no Trump tires this year, but I like that. I like that idea. There will be a Trump event, though. There will be a Trump heavy and light option event, but not tires this year. It's a good idea. Just you gotta work with some things, this and that. That actually refers back, believe it or not. I said you have to consider the venue and the type of surface that you're going to be on. That was actually partially limited because of the type of surface and where we're going to be. That's all I can say about that. Anyways, I'm going to give us about 1 more minute here, guys. Please drop a question if you have it. Horace, if you're still here, what's up, man? What's up, Sam Fox? See a couple of you guys in here. That's that. So, cool. This was good. Yeah, Horace coming and competing on Saturday. The man. Horace, hope you're wearing something fun, man. It's getting the holiday spirit. Maybe bring a Christmas sweater or, something fun. I don't know if I'm supposed to tell you this or not, but Sean Burton is dyeing his beard coming as Santa. So that'll be fun. Looking forward to that. Leroy, yeah, my man, coming down Saturday. See you Saturday, my brother. Oh, yeah, I know Leroy's ready for April 19th. That's going to be a good one. So last 30 seconds. If you got any questions, this is your time, people. I could talk on and on and on and on and on about Strongman. I love it. It's my favorite thing. But, I like to talk to other people about it too. So that's that. Anyways, all right, guys. I am going to call it a wrap there. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, or just want to talk Strongman, hit me up. All my social channels are the exact same username, at Stephen M. Coyne. Stephen with a V. M as in money. Coyne, Coyne. Have a great night. Appreciate it. Stay strong, stay swole, and have a championship day. Boom.